There is a silence more powerful than words, and a presence more magnetic than beauty. The moment you abandon that silence to chase what flickers, you risk losing what glows. In this very moment, ask yourself quietly, are you connecting from fullness or reaching from a place of lack? This question is not about age or gender. It is about energy, dignity, and the sacred ground on which your spirit walks. Many older women feel drawn to the spark of youth in a younger man, and that is natural. The freshness of his desire, the fire of his ambition, and the pull of his curiosity can feel invigorating, like spring rain after a long winter. Here is the first truth: never offer your depth to someone who only seeks your surface. Stay with me until the end of this journey, and together we will uncover not just what not to do, but why choosing yourself is the quietest and most powerful act of love. There is a kind of peace that is not taught in books, not found in noise, and not given by another. It is the quiet whisper of a life lived in harmony with itself. For the older woman in the presence of a younger man, this peace becomes both her greatest gift and her greatest test. It is not the fire in her eyes that holds power, the stillness in her soul. A stillness shaped by storms endured, by silence chosen, and by the long road walked inward. And yet, this stillness can be threatened the moment she forgets that it is not her responsibility to calm another's storm by stepping into it. The first teaching arises gently from this truth: never surrender your inner stillness to youthful chaos. Imagine a tranquil lake nestled deep in the mountains. For decades, it has reflected the sky with perfect clarity. Winds may come and go, but they stir only the surface. Beneath, the water remains untouched, deep undisturbed. One day, a young traveler arrives. Enthralled by the lake's beauty, he tosses a stone into its heart. The ripples spread, disrupting the glass like mirror. The lake, in its wisdom, does not protest. It simply absorbs the motion and returns to calm. It does not chase the stone, nor follow the traveler who leaves. It knows its truth. Stillness is not weakness, but mastery. In the same way, a woman who has known herself, who has listened to the rhythm of her own breath through years of becoming, must guard her peace. A younger man may come with energy like wind, bold, shifting, full of motion and fire. His world moves quickly, and there is vitality in that. To step into his pace, to adjust one's breath, to match his, is to abandon the very treasure age has given the wisdom of slowness, of reflection, of being. One does not slow the heartbeat by running faster. In everyday life, this can be seen in quiet moments. A woman who has cultivated patience may find herself interrupting her own silence to respond more quickly, laugh more loudly, or suppress her intuition to avoid discomfort. She may begin to measure her worth by how youthful she can seem, how accommodating she can become. And each of these small sacrifices chips away at the calm she once held until she no longer recognizes her own reflection in the relationship. Nature teaches us this constantly. The oak tree does not envy the wildflower, though the flower is bright and fleeting. The tree's roots are deep. It has stood through winters, seen the passing of many seasons. It offers shade, not because it seeks to be noticed, because it has become. And in becoming, it needs nothing from the flower, not approval, not urgency, not praise. It simply is. The chaos of another should never become your compass. An ancient teaching from the Tao teaching offers this: he who stands on tiptoe does not stand firm. He who rushes ahead does not go far. He who shines does not light the way. Stillness is not a lack of motion. It is a presence so full that it requires nothing extra. When an older woman forgets this, she begins to trade her centeredness for companionship, her clarity for affection, and her depth for momentary fire. The result is imbalance, and what begins with desire ends with disconnection. Therefore, The woman who has traveled far, remember this, the right presence will not disturb your stillness. It will sit beside it. And so we flow gently to the second teaching as naturally as water finds its path. Never become the teacher who forgets to keep learning. Wisdom, though beautiful, can become a prison if held too tightly. Age often brings insight, perspective, understanding, hard-won truths forged in the furnace of time. And yet, the danger lies in believing that wisdom is a mountain to stand upon rather than a river to walk beside. The moment we place ourselves above another, we stop seeing them clearly. We stop receiving. There is a story told in whispers beneath the temple bells. A woman who had spent many years in meditation welcomed a young seeker into her garden. He spoke eagerly, sharing ideas about the world, about life, about love. The woman smiled, but said nothing. Later, she served him tea. As she poured, the cup filled, and she continued pouring. The tea spilled over, steaming into the air. The young man cried out, "It's already full!" She stopped, looked into his eyes, and said, "So is your mind." The young man lowered his gaze, but the next day he returned quieter, and she poured again. It is tempting, when older, to speak more than to listen, to guide more than to receive, especially with a younger man who may seem uncertain, still forming, seeking direction. But true wisdom listens. It watches. It allows space for others to stumble, to learn their own truths. Without interruption, the oak may shelter the seed, but it does not grow in its place. In real life, this can be seen in the simple rhythm of conversation. A woman may correct, advise, or help, not from condescension, but from care. If that care becomes overbearing, it stifles. A man's growth does not require rescue. His journey may look different. His beliefs may be in early bloom, but they are his to explore. And in allowing that, a deeper connection forms, not of hierarchy, but of mutual unfolding. Consider the moon and the tide. The moon influences, but does not control. The tide responds, but remains itself. Dance is ancient, respectful, mysterious. So too should be the dynamic between the seasoned and the seeking. The older woman offers depth. She must also remain curious about how he sees the world, about what new perspectives he brings. For the river flows both ways, and in each generation is born a new form of insight. Not better or worse, but different. To embrace it is to stay alive. There is a Buddhist reflection that says, "Tuo." When the student is ready, the teacher appears. But when the teacher is wise, she remains a student. To teach is noble. To learn is divine. When a woman stops learning, she begins to fossilize her identity. She holds on to what was once true and forgets that truth evolves. And in the space between pride and surrender, connection withers. But when she listens, truly listens, she becomes more than wise. She becomes present, and presence is the doorway to love. So walk beside, not ahead. Speak gently, not always first. And when you find yourself certain, ask again, not because you are unsure, but because you are humble. This is the quiet power of true maturity, not in what it knows, but in what it is still willing to discover. As these two truths settle like dust upon still ground, you may begin to sense a deeper pattern. Keep your peace and to remain open are not opposite teachings. They are one. They are the two wings of the same bird. With one, you root yourself in the truth of your being. With the other, you stretch toward the sky of another's becoming. And perhaps the most beautiful flight is one that neither clings nor controls, but simply moves with grace in quiet understanding through the open air. So pause here, not to conclude, but to breathe. Let these words sit in your heart like stones warming in the sun, not heavy but grounding. And know this, you are not here to chase, nor to teach endlessly, nor to adjust your soul for someone still shaping his. You are here to be, and in your being, All things will align or fall away. Either way, your stillness remains. There is a quiet dignity in knowing your place in the vast rhythm of life, not as someone superior or inferior, simply rooted in the truth of your own becoming. The years that pass are not burdens, but layers of meaning that settle into the skin and the soul. A woman who has lived deeply carries not just memories, the tone of wisdom in her breath, the rhythm of patience in her movements, and the authority of silence in her presence. Yet even such a woman may forget for a moment and begin to shrink. Not because she is weak, but because she longs to be seen. She may twist herself to fit into the smaller frame of another's life. She may begin to soften the shape of her truth just to remain close to a man whose journey is still unfolding. In doing so, she trades authenticity for proximity. And this is where the third teaching speaks: never shrink to fit into his world. There is a tale told in the hills of old Shaolin of a large and ancient mirror that stood in the temple's inner chamber. For decades, monks had used it to reflect on themselves, not just their appearance, but their essence. One day, a new novice entered. Eager to contribute, he polished the mirror, reshaped the frame, and even carved patterns around it to make it more attractive. But when the elder monk returned, he wept. "You have made the mirror beautiful," he said, "but in doing so, you have made it no longer honest. It no longer reflects truly." So it is with a woman who alters her core to appear more agreeable, more appealing, more digestible to a younger man. What was once a reflection of deep experience becomes distorted, decorated, and diminished. She no longer recognizes herself. And worse, he no longer meets the woman, only her performance. In life, this happens quietly. She begins to dress to match his pace, silences opinions to avoid conflict, or hides her spiritual depth because it seems too much for his understanding. She laughs at things that do not amuse her. She nods at beliefs that do not live in her bones. Slowly, almost invisibly, she becomes a guest in her own life. But the soul always notices. In nature, we see a similar truth. The banyan tree, vast and ancient, spreads across the forest floor with roots that become trunks of their own. Birds nest in it, shade rests under it, and the wind whispers through its leaves. But imagine if one day decided to grow smaller, to shrink its reach so a young vine might wrap itself around it more easily. It would no longer be a banyan, a shadow of itself, and the vine, it would never learn to climb with its own strength. A woman, too, must remain vast, not in arrogance, but in reverence for the life she has cultivated. Let the younger man reach upward if he chooses. Let him grow into her presence if he can. She must not fold her wings just so she fits more neatly into his embrace. The words of the philosopher Epictetus echo here, Tor. Know first who you are and then adorn yourself accordingly. It is not selfish to be whole, it is sacred. And so we arrive slowly, fourth teaching, which flows naturally from the last: never compete with his path or pace. The river does not rush to match the clouds. It moves by its own rhythm, shaped by stone and time. It is easy, especially in a world that worships momentum, to believe that love means walking the same path at the same speed. A younger man, full of vision and hunger, may be ascending, building, conquering, exploring the external. The older woman, by contrast, may be descending inward, seeking stillness, meaning, integration. These are not conflicting paths unless ego demands uniformity. There is an old fable of two travelers, one young, one older, who meet at the base of a sacred mountain. The young one charges ahead, eager to reach the summit. He sees the climb as a conquest. The older one walks slower, stopping to feel the earth, to breathe the air, to listen to the silence. Halfway up, the young traveler slips and tumbles, frustrated and breathless. The older one reaches him and smiles gently, offering no judgment, only presence. "We are not here to conquer the mountain," she says. "We are here to let it change us." In many relationships, pace becomes a source of tension. A woman may feel pressure to keep up in energy, in appearance, in ambition, or she may find herself subtly pulling the man to slow down, to move at her rhythm. But both approaches miss the essence of harmony. Harmony is not matching, it is complementing. It is two different instruments tuning to one song. A real life reflection of this can be found in relationships where one partner is seeking external success while the other is exploring inner fulfillment. The younger man may want to chase career goals, climb mountains, build structures. The older woman may be drawn to peace, contemplation, and quiet joy. Temptation to sync up can become a silent war, either through striving or withdrawal. But when each honors their journey, a new space opens, one of mutual respect, not rivalry. In the natural world, consider the sun and the moon. They do not appear together often, and yet their relationship governs all tides, seasons, and rhythms of life. They do not compete for the sky. Each appears in its time, bringing light in different ways. Their power lies not in their sameness, but in their balance. The Zen master Dio Jen once wrote, "Do not follow the ideas of others, but learn to listen to the voice within yourself. Your body and mind will become clear, and you will realize the unity of all things." To walk your own path without apology is not distance, it is devotion. To allow another to walk theirs without resistance is not surrender, it is strength. There is nothing more beautiful than two souls moving at their own paces, turning to one another with open hands and quiet eyes, saying not, "Be like me," but "Be with me as you are." Let this truth linger like incense in the air, not rushed, not forced, but slowly rising. Together, these two teachings form a deeper rhythm. Do not shrink and do not chase. Hold your ground and walk your path. Let the younger man meet you there, not in demand, but in invitation. For the woman who lives in her fullness, unbent, unhurried, offers the rarest gift of all, the example of someone who does not need love to feel whole, but offers it anyway, not as a transaction, not as a performance, but as a reflection of her own peace. And to the man who can see that, truly see, there will be no greater teacher, no gentler mirror, no more sacred flame. So walk slowly, stand tall, and in your quiet truth, let him rise or let him pass. Either way, you remain. There is a kind of emptiness that feels like a weight pressing upon the heart. Not because something is missing, because something untrue has taken root. Often, it is not loneliness that burdens us, but the fear of it. A fear so loud it convinces us to welcome the wrong company, to keep a door open to what does not belong. And so the fifth teaching emerges, quiet yet unwavering: never fear solitude more than misalignment. A life of depth does not always echo with laughter or companionship. Sometimes it hums gently with the sound of one's own breath. And that must be enough. Sit in solitude without fear is to return to the very center of being, like a mountain that neither chases the clouds nor calls for the wind. Simply is. There is a parable of an old monk who lived high in the mountains alone for decades. One day, a traveler arrived and asked, "Do you not feel the ache of isolation?" The monk smiled and replied, "Once I learned to sit with the silence, I discovered I was never alone. I had mistaken the noise of the world for the voice of my soul." The traveler nodded, but could not understand, for his ears were still tuned to the sounds of others. It is with the older woman who chooses to stay in misaligned relationships out of fear of being alone. She feels the ache, yes. The space around her seems wide, the nights long. What she often does not see is that staying where the heart does not rest is far lonelier than solitude itself. To lie beside someone who cannot hold your truth is to become invisible in your own life. In the realm of daily living, this shows up in subtle ways. A woman begins to overlook behaviors that gnaw at her spirit, small manipulations, emotional absence, the erosion of mutual respect. She tells herself, at least I'm not alone. But each compromise makes her more so. The connection she clings to becomes a shell. A presence without presence, like a lantern that holds no flame. If she dares to stand in solitude, fully not as punishment but as sanctuary, something within begins to awaken. She hears herself again. She remembers her voice, and in that remembering she becomes whole. Nature, too, speaks to this. The eagle flies alone, not because it cannot join a flock, but because the wind at high altitudes is not meant for many. Its solitude is not exile, it is elevation. It watches the earth below not with disdain, but with clarity. It knows that rising requires release. In ancient words, philosopher Boethius once wrote in every kind of adversity, the most important thing is to know how to be one's own best friend. To choose solitude over misalignment is not to close your heart. It is to guard it until it can be met with equal presence. Solitude is a temple, not a tomb. It is where the sacred parts of you return after being scattered in noise. It is where the fires of discernment are stoked, so that the next time love knocks, it must speak the language of truth or remain outside. And when that silence becomes your companion, you are no longer waiting for someone to complete you. You are simply standing whole, offering your presence not from need, but from abundance. Let this lesson fold into the sixth and final truth. As naturally as dusk follows the day, never mistake desire for depth. There are many flames in the world. Some warm, some consume. The difference is not in their brightness, but in their source. A younger man may burn with the heat of passion, the thrill of newness, the magnetic pull of desire. And while these feelings are not false, they are not always rooted in depth. To confuse being desired with being seen is to drink from an empty cup and wonder why we still thirst. There is a tale once told in the quiet halls of an Eastern monastery. A woman carried a glowing lantern into a dark cave. Inside, she met a man who had never seen light before. He was drawn to the flame, fascinated, intoxicated. He begged her to stay. But each time she asked, "What do you see in me?" He answered, "The light, the heat, the way you break the darkness." She wept softly and said, "Then you do not seize me, only what I carry." And she walked away, leaving the man to learn the darkness, and in time, find his own light. Desire is a spark. It is natural, even sacred in its own way. But when it is not accompanied by reverence, it becomes a flash in the pan. Hot, dazzling, and brief. It leaves the soul colder than before. In everyday life, this may appear in fleeting romances. When a woman is praised for her energy, her beauty, her sensuality, but never asked about her pain, her stillness, her dreams. The man desires what he sees, but does not sit long enough to discover what he cannot. He wants the flame, not the candle. He wants the song, not the silence that gave birth to it. The older woman must listen closely in such moments. Is he drawn to her presence or only to her performance? Does he know how to sit in silence with her or only how to chase intensity? Does he make her feel cherished or consumed? Nature speaks again. The cherry blossom blooms in brilliance but falls quickly. The oak tree, slow and unassuming, offers shade for generations. One dazzles, the other endures. Both are beautiful, but not equal in depth. The philosopher Chuang Tzu once said, "The flame that burns twice as bright burns half as long." But the light of the soul, steady and still, outlasts all storms. A woman who has walked through fire knows that passion alone cannot hold her. She seeks not just the spark, but the hearth, a love that warms slowly, consistently, through seasons. To choose depth is to ask the harder questions. Not do you want me, but do you see me? Not will you stay, but can you sit with all that I am? Not just what delights you. The younger man who carries only desire may grow tired. The one who seeks to understand, who lingers in your silences, who asks to know the story behind your gaze. He carries the seed of depth, but it is still a seed. Do not water it at the expense of your own roots. When a woman honors this difference, she no longer chases fire. She becomes it, calm, enduring, sacred, and only those who come with steady breath and quiet respect may sit near her flame. In this final unfolding, we come full circle. To fear solitude less than misalignment is to protect the soil. To value depth over desire is to choose the seed, not the flash. Together they form a foundation, not for finding love, but for being love, for living in such a way that whether love arrives or not, you remain whole. And when love does arrive, not rushing, not demanding, resting beside your presence like a mountain beside another, it will not feel like conquest or flattery. It will feel like recognition, like silence that no longer needs to be filled, like coming home, not to him, but to yourself in his presence. And that is the rarest kind of love, the one that begins where fear ends, the one that honors not just the fire, but the soul that tended it. These truths settle into you like moonlight over still water, not loud, not sudden, but deep, and may you walk on, not waiting to be chosen, but remembering you already are. Let your life be like still water, clear, deep, and undisturbed by passing winds. If a younger man wishes to join you in that stillness, not out of need, but from reverence, then there is beauty in the meeting. Never abandon the temple of your peace to follow echoes down an unfamiliar path. You have spent years becoming a woman of depth. Do not trade that for anything fleeting. There is a soft power in being alone, but not lonely. In being wanted, but not needing to be wanted. In choosing silence when others shout. Breathe, reflect. This is not a speech about what you should fear. It is a reminder of what you must protect. And sometimes the most sacred thing we can do is nothing at all.